For the man who said that we would get tired of winning under his presidency, Donald Trump has suffered quite a few losses lately, and each one gets more and more delicious. But the latest might be the best, because not only is it a huge loss for Donald Trump, but a huge win for thousands of federal workers. And Donald Trump is not reacting well, which means his press secretary is reacting even worse, because after Donald Trump was hit with a massive lawsuit, we saw a massive tantrum from Karoline Leavitt, who lied, as she always does, in a way that was just so humiliating. We're going to get into it all, but before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way, and it really does mean a lot to me. Now, before we can get into Leavitt's meltdown, of course we need the context on this big legal win and loss for Donald Trump from Rachel Maddow right here.
All right, update. As we reported at the top of the show, federal judge in California today issued a blistering ruling from the bench in which he ordered the Trump administration to rehire thousands of people they had fired from the federal government at USDA, Defense Department, Energy Department, Department of the Interior, the Treasury, and the VA. Well, I got two updates for you. Because tonight, just as we were coming on the air, the plaintiffs in that case, the California federal case, the plaintiffs are the union representing government workers. Plaintiffs went back to that same judge in California and essentially said, thank you for this ruling today, Your Honor. Can you please make it so it applies to even more agencies? They have now formally asked the judge to expand that order today to also order the reinstatement of fired employees at the Commerce Department, Education Department, Health and Human Services, Homeland Security, Housing and Urban Development, the Justice Department, Department of Transportation, the EPA, NASA, the National Science Foundation, and the Small Business Administration. Update 1. Here's update 2. Just minutes after those plaintiffs asked the California federal judge to expand his ruling and order even more agencies to rehire even more people, a second federal judge across the country in Maryland issued a ruling in an entirely separate case ordering the federal government also to rehire thousands of fired federal employees. This federal judge in Maryland tonight has just ordered that thousands of fired probationary employees must now be reinstated at, ready for the list? Department of Agriculture, Department of Commerce, Department of Defense, Department of Education, Department of Energy, Health and Human Services, Homeland Security, Housing and Urban Development, Department of the Interior, Department of Labor, Department of Transportation, the Treasury Department, VA, USAID, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the EPA, the FDIC, the General Services Administration, the Office of Personnel Management, the Small Business Administration, and the National Archives and Records Administration. All of them. Reinstate all of your fired probationary employees. And if it seems like there's overlap between the list in those two cases, you are correct. As of tonight, just in today's news, we've got overlapping federal rulings ordering the immediate reinstatement of thousands of employees at multiple federal agencies. I'll tell you, the Maryland judge writes in this new order that's just out tonight, quote, the law is clear that when dismissing an employee due to unsatisfactory performance, the employer must honestly be dissatisfied with the probationer's conduct or performance after giving him a fair trial on the job. But again, two federal judges tonight with equally sweeping rulings, both in the same direction, both telling Trump, when you fired those people, you had no right. Give them back their jobs.
This is why I talk so much about how important it is for us to recognize the agency that we have in this moment, that we can still fight back. If we bend the knee, if we pre-capitulate on everything, if we go, oh, Mr. Trump is just going to win, like I see some Democrats doing, both in the media and elected, I think you know who you are, then we don't get wins like this. It takes time, sure, but in the meantime, let's obstruct. Let's make a muck. Let's call them out. Let's fire people up, because we can fight back. And clearly we can, and clearly it is upsetting them, because like I said at the start of this video, Karoline Leavitt, their little temper tantrum after. Take a look.
get an update on it.
Caroline, district court rulings about all the fired probationary workers use the same language here just now that was in the statement about fighting back against that ruling. Do you mean appealing or something else? And does the administration plan to comply with those orders in the meantime?
Fighting back by appealing, fighting back by using the full weight of the White House counsel's office and our lawyers at the federal government who believe that this injunction is entirely unconstitutional. And it is, for anybody who has a basic understanding of the law. You cannot have a low-level district court judge filing an injunction to usurp the executive authority of the President of the United States. That is completely absurd. And as the executive of the executive branch, the President has the ability to fire or hire. And you have these lower-level judges who are trying to block this President's agenda. It's very clear. And as I just cited, I was appalled by the statistic when I saw it this morning. In 1 month, in February, there have been 15 injunctions of this administration in our agenda. In 3 years under the Biden administration, there were 14 injunctions. So it's very clear that there are judicial activists throughout our judicial branch who are trying to block this president's executive authority. We are going to fight back. And as anyone who saw President Trump and his legal team fighting back, they know how to do it. He was indicted nearly 200 times, and he's in the Oval Office now because all of the indictments, all of these injunctions have always been unconstitutional and unfair. They are led by partisan activists who are trying to usurp the will of this president, and we're not going to stand for it. Thanks, guys.
Let's make one thing incredibly clear. And I know y'all don't trust in anything Carolyn Levitt says. You don't need my guidance on realizing that she is a liar and that she's wrong. It is not unconstitutional for there to be checks on presidential power. I know you're not that smart, Carolyn, but this is like 6th grade civics here. That's not unconstitutional. Defying those court orders, defying that check on your power, that's unconstitutional. Donald Trump wanting to take the power of the purse from Congress, that's unconstitutional. Donald Trump wanting to make himself a God king, that is unconstitutional. It's not people opposing Donald Trump. That doesn't make you a criminal, doesn't make you a traitor, that doesn't make you un-American. There's nothing more American than opposing Donald Trump right now. So let's make that all clear, Carolyn. God, she is bad at her job. You would think her job is to lie. She'd be better at lying. She is not. She is not that great. But this is positive news. We are finally getting some positive news. We needed it. And Rachel Maddow has even more on that. So take a look at this right here. It'll make you smile.
The judge then decided in this hearing today that he wasn't going to wait to give a written ruling. He decided, you know what, I've heard enough. He decided he was going to rule from the bench today. T-O-D-A-Y, today. So he started with this. And the judge says this. Now, what I'm about to say is not the legal basis for what I'm going to order today, but I just want to say it. He says, quote, "It is a sad day when our government would fire some good employee and say it was based on performance when they know good and well that's a lie. Excellent in all, fully," what was the phrase? I don't want to misstate it. Quote, "fully successful in every category, yet they terminate her based on her performance. That should not have been done in our country. It was a sham in order to avoid statutory requirements. It also happens to be that whenever you fire somebody based on performance, then they can't get unemployment insurance. So that makes it even worse, doesn't it? And then it makes it even worse because the next employer is going to say, well, have you ever been terminated based on performance? They're going to have to say yes to thousands of people. It is illustrative of the manipulation that was going on by OPM to try to orchestrate this government-wide termination of probationary employees. Quote, "The court finds that OPM did direct all the agencies to terminate probationary employees. The court rejects the government's attempt to use these press releases and to read between the lines to say that the agency heads made their own decision with no direction from OPM. The relief that's going to be granted is as follows. First, the temporary restraining order will be extended. The VA shall immediately offer reinstatement to any and all probationary employees terminated on or about February 13th or 14th. This order finds that all such terminations were directed by defendant OPM and were unlawful because OPM had no authority to do so. Further, the VA shall cease any and all use of the template termination notice provided by OPM and shall immediately advise all probationary employees terminated February 13th and 14th that the notice and termination have been found to be unlawful by the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of California. The VA shall cease any termination of probationary employees at the direction of OPM. To repeat, this order holds that OPM has no authority whatsoever to direct, order, or require in any way that any agency fire any employee. Now, given the arguments and the facts in this case, namely that defendants have attempted to recast these directives as mere guidance, my order today, quote, further prohibits defendants from giving guidance as to whether any employee should be terminated. Any termination of agencies' employees must be made by the agencies themselves, if made at all, and they must be made in conformity with the Civil Service Reform Act and the Reduction in Force Act and any other constitutional or statutory legal requirement. He says, quote, in 7 calendar days, relief defendant, VA, the VA shall submit a list of all probationary employees terminated on or about February 13th and 14th with an explanation as to each of what has been done to comply with this order. Then the judge says this. Now, this order so far has only mentioned the VA, the Veterans Administration. But the same relief is extended, and I'm not going to repeat it, but I'm extending the same relief to the Department of Agriculture, the Department of Defense, the Department of Energy, the Department of the Interior, the Department of Treasury. And so it's the VA plus all those other agencies. He says, and this is without prejudice to extending the relief later in further to other agencies. The judge then closes with this. I will try to get out a short memorandum opinion that elaborates on this order, but this is the order, and it counts effective immediately. Please don't say, oh, I'm waiting for the written order. This is the order from the bench. And then the judge then closes with this admonition to the Trump administration lawyer. Quote, if you want to appeal to the Court of Appeals, God bless you. I want you to, because I'm tired of seeing you stonewall on trying to get at the truth. And that is how thousands of people who work in our government, who Donald Trump and his top campaign donor tried to fire, that is how thousands of Americans got their jobs back today.
We can win this fight. It may not feel like we win every battle. Certainly, it won't feel like we win most battles. I'm going to keep it real. I'm just going to be completely honest. But the war of this thing really is whether or not we keep fighting. The most important thing we can do is stay engaged. Because when we don't, they'll do whatever they want. Now, they're certainly trying to do whatever they want in public. Donald Trump is selling exploding vehicles on the White House lawn with his co-president Elon Musk. Sure, they're going to be pretty public with their corruption. But if we fight back, that is a win in of itself. And we're going to keep seeing more of them. And we're going to talk about them every single day on the show. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video. And if you stuck around to the end, you can drop a blue heart in the comments. Until next time, I'll see you soon.